Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Teachers That Sparkle. We are back again for another fantastic episode with another little nugget for you to help you be the very best in your classroom. Before we get started, though, I have to give a shout out to those of you who are on break this week. Some of you, especially in the Houston area, I don't know about other areas for sure, but many school districts started implementing some different kind of schedules. I know that this is happening across the country as well, but I know for sure in this area, some districts have decided to implement a longer calendar period, but then include breaks throughout the year. So there's fall break, which is going on right now, and a week off, and then still get to include the Thanksgiving break and the Christmas break, and then they get into February and have another break, and then still get to have spring break. So it kind of breaks up the year a little bit more for, teachers and staff and students and families. Pros and cons, of course, to all of that. But I know that teachers are in those districts right now are probably feeling a lot of the pros today because this is the week for that to happen, and they are sleeping in or whatever they're doing on vacation, etc. Another popular calendar that's kind of taken place here in Texas, one district I know in the Houston area, are the 4-day work weeks. And there's still some things that happen, I think, on some Fridays. I'm not really entirely sure of all the details, but real understanding that students only go to school 4 days a week, and it kind of gives teachers opportunities to get things done on Fridays, meetings, trainings, things like that. So maybe you don't have to take things home on the weekend. I do anticipate that it probably means a little bit longer school day during the week, or maybe a longer calendar. However, again, I'm not 100% of all the details, but I know that that's something too that districts across the country are kind of playing with. When I was in Des Moines public schools, I was actually at a campus my first year that went year round. So we had a 6-week summer break, but then we had several breaks built into the school year that broke up the year a little bit. Again, there were pros and cons to it. I think one of the biggest cons was just that there were only a few of us on that calendar, and so curriculum materials weren't always ready. Training didn't take place until after we had already been in school for about 6 weeks. And so I think that our teachers maybe had some gaps in some of the work that they did because of those situations. But I also know that it did kind of cut down on some of the learning loss of the longer breaks, with students. So there are pros and cons to all the different kind of calendars for sure. But I say all that to say, for those of you who are off this week, I hope you have plans to enjoy, rest, and relax. All right, let's get into episode number 14, which is another one of our top 10 little tips and tricks to make sure that you are running your classroom at its highest level of success, that you feel good about the work that you're being able to do, and you feel empowered to be able to continue to make a difference in the lives of children. And this week's little tip is respect. And not just knowing what respect is, but understanding that respect is kind of a two-way street. So let's talk about that a little bit. So of course, we know what respect is, right? Or at least we assume everybody knows what respect is. But just so we're all on the same page, I'm going to give you my definition of respect, okay? To me, respect means that you treat someone basically the way you would want to be treated. You're honest with them, you're open with them, you listen, and you almost put in that little bit of kindness, as well. So it's really about how you treat that person, reciprocal to how you would want to be treated, right? The golden rule, so to speak. I also know that sometimes respect is about doing something that is required even when you don't want to do it. So let's talk about that for a second. There were times when I was a teacher, a principal, even now in my own online business, where I think, no, I don't resonate with that. That's not part of my plan, my purpose. But if my superior, if my supervisor is telling me this needs to get done, guess what? Sherry Dixon is going to get it done. Okay. I might not agree with it 100%, but I'm going to respect their authority and I'm going to do what's being asked of me. I think that that's something, we all have to maybe go back and revisit sometimes, especially in 2023, right? I don't never want to say that I think the times are worse than they were in the past. Maybe. I know some difficult times in the past, not just for me, but even prior to me becoming a teacher. I've heard stories about people I know personally and the things that they've done in school or done around school or what teachers did in school way back in the day. But here's the difference. We have so many outlets in which we can post those things. We can share those things. We can put those things out to the world. So it almost feels like we are being inundated with those situations. And here's the other thing that I think we're in a place in 2023 is that we're real quick to judge. Not necessarily that we're being malicious on purpose, but sometimes it's almost like the train wreck, right? Something happens, a car accident, you're driving, I live in a big city, so I might be on the freeway and something has happened on the other side of the freeway that has nothing to do with me. But guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn and I'm going to look and I'm going to pay attention and I'm going to be thinking, wow, wonder what happened, huh? What's that all about? It's not my business, right? But it's there. And so sometimes it's real easy to get caught up with these things that are posted. And more people, statistics will tell you this, more people are going to look at negative information than positive information. I can promise you that. So because of that, I think that we get to a place where maybe we have a different definition or a different sense of what respect is. And not just that, but a different thought process on maybe how you get respect. I'm going to give you an example. I remember talking with a teacher way back at the beginning of my career as a principal, and we had a challenging school. And when I came in as the principal, I was the assistant principal the year before, and the school was falling apart. It was a hot mess. Literally, it was a disaster. So when I was named the principal, I decided, and I worked with my supervisors to be able to have the permission to kind of ease through the transition. If you've heard me speak before, I always did turnaround schools. And so these were schools that were failing and I needed to get them where they needed to go. But because of the circumstances of that previous year, I wanted my staff to really understand I respected them and their expertise. I was young. I was in my 30s, early-ish to middle 30s, and I was young. And many of these people working at the school had so much more experience than me, so many more years of working in the industry and older than me. And so I had to really think about that when I was trying to rebuild climate and culture and really earn the respect. So I'm talking with teachers a lot one-on-one and, really being in their classrooms and trying to stay focused on all of the positive things they were doing while still being able to give them some very effective feedback that wasn't going to shut them down. And I was meeting with a teacher one day and I didn't have a choice because when I was in the classroom, the way the teacher was addressing the students was totally inappropriate. And I had to keep thinking, and remember, I'm a brand new principal, and this is I've not had these hard conversations before, and I know I have to take care of this because we're talking about children's lives. And all in all, as the conversation started to go on, and it was uncomfortable, but the teacher ended up saying, well, I just don't understand it. I'm the teacher. They should just respect me. And that's when I started doing this hard work of thinking through that statement right there. I am the teacher. They should just respect me. It's almost like saying, I'm a police officer. You should just respect me. I am the president of the United States. You should just respect me. I am your principal. You should just respect me. Now, I say those phrases because really and truly, let's stop and think about it. Is that always the case? I think that sometimes we think when it's about us, when we're the main player, yeah, everybody should respect me. I'm in this position of authority. But when you're living your real life, are you really living it true to that statement? I don't know, sometimes. So as I started working through that process and thinking about that and going through all of the work that I'd done in the schools and even work in life, observing and talking with people and learning from others, Kimberly and I really truly believe at Teachers That Sparkle that respect is something that is earned, and it's a two-way street. Yes, we have to think that because we are the authority in the classroom, there's going to be some kind of level of compliance from students, right? But how do you really get them to respect you? And that's where this thought comes in. Learning to respect your students, learning to develop a relationship with your students that really revolves that kindness, the being honest, the listening, the understanding will make that all happen. So let's think about this. If you were my teacher and I was your principal, and I came into your room on a day that you had just had an argument with your child on the way to school, or your partner, or somebody close to you, and it was big, it was a pretty substantial situation, and you're not at your best, and the bell goes off first thing in the morning, and 5 minutes later, I'm in your room to do an observation. And it doesn't turn out so well because you're not in the right state of mind, right? I call you in and I can handle it one of two ways. What if I handle it with this? You know, that was not a good observation. I expect more from you. You have been coming in not yourself lately. I can see it. It needs to change. I don't know how it's going to change, but it needs to change, and it needs to change by tomorrow. Now, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to come back, and I'm going to come back every day this week to make sure that you're back on track and you are changing. And I am writing this observation up, and it will go in your file. Think about your feelings about that. I've used my power, my authority to power you, not empower you, but to power over you, to force change, to get you to do what I want you to do, which is to be able to successfully teach your teachers or your students. However, what if I came in and I said, wow, is everything okay? Because that is totally not you. And I've noticed recently that maybe you've not been yourself, and I'm worried about you. Is there something that we need to talk about? Because I really don't want to use this as your observation that's going to go into your file. Now it's up to you. I can't tell you whether to accept it or not to accept it, but I really believe that you can do better. Is there something that you want to talk to me about? Do you need some help with something? What's happening? I'm still getting my point across that that wasn't a good observation, that I don't want to have to put that in your file, but I could, but I'm also opening that door to say, you're human. We all make mistakes sometimes, or we all have situations that might happen. Let's talk about them. Let's work together as a team, and let's move you forward, because I know that you can do better than that, right? Still got my message across, but it was a completely different feel. And you're going to feel completely different in both of those situations. So now let's relate that to the classroom. Johnny comes in. Oh no, let's say Jane. Jane comes in, and Jane is mad at mom. And you can tell Jane is one of those students that the moment she walks into the classroom in the morning, you get this, you can tell what kind of day we're going to have. And Jane is having a rough start to the day. And Jane decides she's going to drop her backpack in the middle of the class. And that's not where backpacks go. And so you say, Jane, pick up that backpack. You know better. How's Jane going to respond to you? Is it going to be with respect? Probably not. She's probably going to either kick the backpack, because now she's even more upset, or she's going to reluctantly pick it up and swing it into and we're still going to be continuing to escalate our emotions. Then you want to get started with class. You say, boys and girls, take out your notebooks. We're going to take some notes. And Jane is not having it. And Jane just sits there. And you, instead of pulling Jane to the side, say in front of the entire class, Jane, I told you this morning to pick up your backpack and you didn't listen. And now I told you to take out that notebook and you didn't listen. Get the notebook out. Let's get started. Jane still doesn't get the notebook out, because now she's in a power struggle with you. She's not going to look silly in front of her peers. She's going to have to gain some power. And so she's not going to do it. And eventually you're going to get to a point where you're frustrated and you're going to end up sending Jane out. Jane goes down to the principal, and a little bit later, the principal comes down and says, pulls you out in the hall and tells you that Jane and her mom got into a really big fight that morning. And Jane's mom hit her with a paddle or something inappropriate. And Jane was very upset. And when she came into the classroom, she just was not ready to get started. Not an excuse for misbehaving. However, she had a whole lot of emotional things going on. Now, though, it's 2:00 in the afternoon, and Jane has done nothing for the day. You're frustrated. You're overwhelmed. What if it could have started over like this? So let's rewind. Jane comes in, and you can tell Jane is having a really bad day, and you know what kind of day it's going to be when she comes in like that. And she drops her backpack on the floor. What if you walked over to Jane and said, hey, I can tell that you're having a tough start to the morning. How about if we get your backpack put away so that we can have a better day? I want you in class today, and I want you to be able to do your best, because we have some really exciting things going on. So you give Jane a minute. She ends up picking up her backpack and putting it in the closet. She comes over to the desk. She's sitting there. She's thinking, how am I going to respond the next time my teacher tells me to do something? You know she is. And she's thinking about how you addressed her privately and you helped her get over the first hump in the morning. So now you want students to take out their notebooks to get started, and she doesn't want to do it. At that moment, what if you say, okay, boys and girls, I want you to turn to your first blank page, get started on this. Jane, come out into the hall with me for a minute. You're saying that privately to her, not in front of the entire class. Jane goes to the hall, and you say, look, Jane, I can tell you're having a really tough day. And it's either going to be like this for the rest of the day, or we can try to turn this around. Is there something you want to tell me? Did you have some trouble at home this morning? Now, here's going to be the kicker. If you've built that relationship, and this is how you handle all of your situations in your classroom, giving your students the respect to know that they may have just made a mistake, that they may be having a bad day, just like me as the principal would do with teachers. chances are she's going to tell you what happened. Chances are she might still have some difficulties getting started when you get back in the classroom, but 99%, she's probably not going to end up at the office that day. And mostly, if she knows you care about her, you're going to listen to her. You're going to be honest with her. We got to get the work done, Jane. I know you're having a bad day, but we got to get this done. So how are we going to get this figured out? You're going to control your stress level and have an even better day yourself. Those are the simple things, guys, that really portrays that thought. I need respect from you. I need you to know I'm the authority. I have a job to do as the teacher. I need to be able to teach you. Your job is to learn. And in the process of that, I'm going to respect you too. I'm going to give you some grace. I'm going to understand. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to know where the limits are, of course, as the teacher. But I'm not going to ever embarrass you or call you out in front of the class. I'm not ever going to yell like that, because honestly, students sometimes don't even respond to that because they have so much of that in their personal lives, depending upon where you work and teach. So our lesson for this week really is, please remember, respect is huge. And yes, we should expect a certain level of respect as the authority in the classroom. But in the day and the times that we live in, the situations that happen every day all around us, we can't always just expect that to happen. We deal with humans. That means we deal with emotions and feelings and thoughts and situations that are out of our control sometimes. But when you make a purpose to not only build that relationship, but understand you have to earn your students' respect by also respecting them, you're going to go a whole lot farther in that classroom, make a whole lot more difference for your students, and actually probably see one of your most successful years ever happen when that happens. Now, I promise you, it's not just my thoughts. This is what I see some of the most amazing teachers do, the ones that students know. My teacher cares. My teacher wants me to do better, and so I'm going to do better. And it goes a long way with building those relationships with parents as well. That's just a little side note. All right, those are my thoughts for this week on Teachers That Sparkle. And I want you to know we really are here to help you do your very, very best. I will always be very authentic, very honest, and very transparent with you. And if you ever need additional help or additional support, reach out, because I have several ways that I work with teachers, new and experienced, to help you really rebuild or build that love of this teaching profession, because we need good people like you to stay in the classroom and do great things with our kids. All right, until next time, this is Sherry with Teachers That Sparkle.